All right. Good evening, everyone. How is it going? All right. So Q&A. I'm a little bit late because I've had to reboot my computer and stuff like that. Certain things just weren't working. And Let me just get one more screen up. Then I'm going to be with you, undivided attention. But as always, I thought we'd be able to talk about what's going on at the moment, answer some questions, and see how we get on. So by all means, feel free to pop your questions in the comment section here. And yeah, we're going to give it a good solid, maybe 45 minutes, around about there, to get through some questions and stuff. So let's see, let's see how we go. Um, um, is the stream still on? Yes, it is still on, Bernard. So hopefully you're here now. All right, okay. So yeah, I don't really have much to kind of update you guys on. Western Goddess, good evening. How you doing? It's been a busy week to be honest, and yeah, it's I've got a busy week ahead in next week. And I thought I'd just jump on here Sunday evening just to kind of fill the gap really with some of the content that we've had and questions obviously that we're taking. Um, I'm good, mate. I am keeping safe. Thank you very much, Meji. Welcome, Crystal. How you doing? Hey, how you doing, Crystal? Crystal's amazing, by the way. Um, yeah, Crystal is amazing. Yeah, so look, time for some questions, really. So if you do have questions on anything at all, you can ask anything you like, and we will see what we get through. See what we get through. Zero saying here. Yeah. All right. This. Okay. Look. This is the beauty of football. So one of my mates is like he's a Liverpool supporter, right? So last season, the last couple of seasons, he's been so gleeful of their performance. It's like you got beaten by Leeds today, who are like in the bottom half of the table. I mean, how quickly things change, and I think that's always worth our remembering. It's true in football, it's true in life. Things change so quickly, and it's one of those situations where if you're going to take a life lesson from this, you know what they say. They say, be nice to people on your way up because you're going to meet them on your way down. Exactly the same premise arrives here. But yeah, I'm happy today with the win over West Ham, starting to build momentum. I feel, particularly with Ten Hag, he's really imprinted his style of play, and we're starting to see that come through in the matches now. Dominance, really, really good patterns. It's good. I mean, we've still got a lot to do. There's still a lot of work to be done, but what we're seeing right now is actually quite encouraging. Apart from the defeat to forget the first two matches of this year of the season because like those are just outliers. I think apart from the defeat to City, I think since then we've done quite well, and hopefully we'll continue to build. We still need a right back. We still need to get another striker. I think there's still more gaps to be filled within that team, but they are starting to look like a proper team now. And yeah, it's going to be competitive. It's going to be a really good season. See where we end up. But yeah, thanks for that, mate. Because I was watching the match a little bit earlier, and the last 10 minutes were a little bit stressful. um, but we saw it out. And yeah, Rashford's goal is just what a bullet. I mean, his 100th goal as well, and he's 25 tomorrow. Absolute legend. Absolute legend. Zero saying here, Rishi's doing a good job, in my opinion. You know what? I think he started off okay. Look, obviously, there's a little bit of there's a there's always going to be, I guess, friction when it comes to the tabloids, when it comes to what he's doing. 100% of people are never going to like what he's done. What's her name? Braverman, foreign secretary, right? Home office. No, she's looking after home office. Should he have appointed her? Okay, maybe debatable. But we're hearing now that Liz Truss, when she was Home Secretary, had a phone compromised for like a year, and they swept that under the rug. I mean, it's never going to be perfect at the end of the day. I think from trying to stable the markets and build confidence again, I think he's done a good job there. but I think there's still a lot more to do in regards to what's going to come out in the budget on the 17th and what that's essentially going to mean. I mean, the challenges are, yes, he's got to balance the books. Obviously, um, he has to cut spending, he has to increase taxes, but he also needs to try and go for growth at the same time. And when you, it's a difficult balance to be able to make. But I hope he's going to do. I hope he'll do all right. Only indications are good at the end of the day, and I think that's the only thing that you can go by in situations like this. You know, how are the markets taken to him, taken pretty well. Obviously, there's a lot of conspiracy theories around him at the moment. I'm not even going to indulge any of those. But we'll see what happens, right? We'll see what happens. World Nerd G, welcome, welcome. Playboy, welcome. Maz, is now a good time to invest in bonds and how do I start? Okay, listen. So I think you should be very, very careful. So this is what I've noticed. There's a lot of news about something that has to do with investing, and people automatically assume that's what they should be investing in. Bonds are not your main. If you're investing, what's the point of you investing? The point is to grow wealth. You're never going to grow any significant amount of wealth in bonds because bonds are the talking point. Does not mean that it's something you should go and invest in. If you're invested with a provider, they're using bonds, but they've had to deal with a lot of the issues that came with bonds, especially if they bought UK debt 3 4 weeks ago. Bonds are not the main engine for growth. And that's really, really important for you to understand. So just because bonds are in the news and bond yields have now come down and they're more attractive, doesn't mean that it's a vehicle for you to invest in. A bond has a very specific role within a portfolio. It is there to diversify and de-risk you. It's not your main vehicle for growth. So I've had tons of these messages and I've not addressed it purely because if you are in your 20s or in your 30s, the place you need to be for growth is equity. You're using bonds to de-risk yourself. So if you're looking for bonds because you think you can make money on bonds, that's the wrong way to look at it. Your bonds are there to de-risk your portfolio. And if you're looking for income, so let's just say you're in your 60s and you're retiring from work in your pension, then bonds could be a source of income for you. If you're in your 20s and your 30s, don't worry about it. This is all the stuff, and I think I've mentioned it here on the channel before, but I'm going to shamelessly plug my course for this because it's all explained in the course, with the role of each of the asset classes, how they're basically introduced, what they're there to do, um, and how you would essentially allocate your money to each of those asset classes depending on what your risk profile is. So if you're balanced, you're going to have more bonds than you will equity. If you're adventurous, you're going to have more equities than you would do bonds. If you're low risk, you're going to have less equity and more bonds, right? By quite some way, depending on where you are in the spectrum. But it's really, really important to understand, number one, what you're investing in isn't dictated by what the thing does. It's dictated by your goal, your timeline, and the level of risk that you're willing to take. Then you choose what you should be invested in. You should never invest in something just because it's in the news, just because bonds have recovered, bonds look good now. That's not a reason to invest in it. You have to go back to why you're investing, how long you're looking to invest for, what risk you're looking to take. Because let's just say you're looking to amass wealth and you're going to put 100% of your money in bonds. Well, you're going to be missing out on a lot of growth. All right. I'm just scanning 1 second. You know what? I think it's going to be I think it will be a really tight race. I mean, they did what 5-0 today, but then again, they did play Nottingham Forest. So what do you expect? I mean, Nottingham Forest are struggling at the minute. They're not one of the top tier sides, so you would expect that kind of result. But with that being said, though, Arteta's done a great job at Arsenal, really, really good job at Arsenal, and they are in contention. I'm still surprised that they're top of the league at the moment. If they remain there by the beginning of the year, if City don't catch them and overtake them, if they don't drop any games, then I would say they'll be in contention. It would be nice to see someone else actually win, other than City and Liverpool, though. To be fair, so yeah, we'll see. You're saying this on the wrong channel, mate. I am a Man U supporter. And I can tell you right now, I think there is element of truth in that. There are a lot of United supporters that think it's like Fergie days. That's been one of the challenges for the club, not moving beyond that. But I think they're looking forward now. I think. Listen, we can make this chat about football all night, mate. But I think what he did with Ronaldo was 100% the right thing to do. I mean, you can't have a player who refuses to come on as a sub. It was a great day. You win over a decent side in Tottenham. You absolutely dominate them. And then something like that happens to take the attention away from the match and the performance and what went well. Uh, yeah, it was very disappointing. So look. All right, let's have a look at this one. This is an investment question. Some American advisors recommend that you invest in an S&P 500 index fund and a Nasdaq 100 fund as an ultimate long-term wealth hack, but those two funds have too much crossover. Do you agree? Yes, 100%. They also don't have any bonds in them if you wanted to de-risk. I mean, and this is a problem with the S&P 500 and solely invested in things like Vanguard. Like if you really want to get serious and you really want to build a portfolio that is 100% aligned to your goals and your timeline, you really wanted to take the due care to do it, the S&P 500, because it doesn't have any bond allocation in it, it can be problematic in terms of it's a 100% equity fund. So your risk is way, 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 way high. And that doesn't necessarily work if you're a medium risk investor and you're investing for a short period of time. You've got all your eggs in one basket pretty much, although it's spread across some good companies. And the Nasdaq, yeah, the Nasdaq, there is going to be crossover naturally within them, and so the makeups on both are very very different, but the crossover is there. I think with it, it's all about at the end of the day, are you happy with that kind of mix? Because even if you bought, I'm trying to think what fund there is in the world that wouldn't necessarily have much crossover with a lot of the companies in the S&P 500, and there aren't that many. Because ultimately, even if you have a look at the most aggressive fund, unless it's bespoke, a lot of them will still have money in the Teslas and the Amazons and all that kind of stuff of this world because they are the biggest companies on the planet. Money is made in asset allocation, not in the actual. If you wanted to build a portfolio, it's all in the asset allocation. That's where you make money. That's why people can have what looks like an identical fund, but actually the allocation within those companies is slightly different, and one outperforms the other. And that's why sometimes when you look at S&P 500 investments, you might see one performs a little bit more than the other, although they're invested in the same thing. Asset allocation that basically does that for you. So you're going to get some crossover. I don't think there is a way where you could avoid getting crossover within a investment portfolio because of the type of companies that we have to invest in. The pool from a macro point of view is actually quite small. If you're looking for stability, you want to get some good companies in there. So yeah. All right, guys. So let me just pop this up here. So just help me out with the likes. Reason why this is important is because obviously with this live, it's going to be about 45 minutes roughly, where I'm going to be answering questions from you guys. And one of the ways that you can say thanks is by liking the video. The reason why that's important is because it means that if you do like it, effectively, you two don't look at it and think, oh, that was rubbish. We're not going to push it to anybody else to watch. So if other people do find something, find that they might benefit from something like this because they're looking at investments, and they want to have maybe a look at what questions get answered, then potentially they don't get to see it because YouTube just automatically think that the live was rubbish. I've got to do something really, really quickly. Bear me 1 second because I'm seeing a load of spam just come through in the comments here. So let's just let's jettison you, mate. You are now gone. Okay, I had to jettison that person. Okay, let's see what else we've got here. Um, am I buying? I'm not buying anything right now. I'm holding a lot of cash at this point in time. So I'm not buying anything at this point in time. So I will be at some point. Will I look at the UK MSCI? Possibly, just because I like global diversification. But then again, I have most of my money already invested in funds, so I just stick to the ones. I don't go shopping for new funds just because it's in the news. My investments are pretty much set, so I'll be adding money to my existing investments and not necessarily looking for something new and shiny. And I think that's really important. That works for me, because I like the simplistic view and approach to investing in things that I have an interest in and something that I think is going to do well based on the management, so on and so forth. So it might be cheap right now. The UK is cheap because of the issues that we're facing. Um, that doesn't mean that I'm going to go pile a lot of money because I'm not buying anything at the moment. That doesn't mean you shouldn't. As always, you have to do your own research on it. I mean, I had a message the other day on Instagram and I ignored it in the end because I'm not going to end I'm not going to answer those type of questions. Is Apple and I think it was like Google Alphabet, are they a buy right now? It's like you need to do your own research. Those kind of companies, they are the biggest in the world. So you got to think about the role that they'll play within your portfolio. Is Alphabet going to go anywhere? No. Is Apple going to go anywhere? No, probably not. They'll still be here for a while. But if you're looking for, stocks that could potentially give you the ability to 10x in, you know, 5 years, Google, Alphabet, and Apple may not necessarily do that because they're mature companies. It takes a lot more for them to 10x than, for example, if you're looking for maybe a new incumbent, new technology, new company to come along and actually give you that boost in the portfolio. It's all about what your goals are, what you invest in for, your reason why, your timeline, and the risk that you're willing to take dictates what goes into your portfolio. And that's really, really important to remember. So a lot of people have, Alphabet, Apple. I was going to say Meta then, but Meta's Meta. But they're still a good pick. I mean, they're under threat right now, and I think Zuckerberg has to wake up a little bit around that with TikTok and 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 that being a massive, massive competitor to them. But people will select those kind of companies because they'll give them a really nice foundation within their portfolio. They then go and have a look at, okay, so this is the foundation to give, a portion, maybe 30% of my money, again, asset allocation, 30% of this investment portfolio, a good grounding. Then they might say, okay, right, now I want to go and have a look at new companies that are exciting, that have the potential to blow up because I want to see this portfolio do X target over X amount of time. If you don't know any of that, what are you buying? If you don't know the answer to that question, you have no idea what you're buying, especially if you're trying to do it on your own. But you have to do research. You have to understand those fundamental questions first. Why you invest in? How long do you invest? What time frame are you looking to work towards? If you can answer those three questions, it's pretty straightforward from that point onwards. You got to have a good reason why. Let's see what else we got. Where was I? Here we go. So look at this. What do you think is going to happen to the housing market considering increasing interest rates? I'm considering investing in one of the house building companies. Uh, well, what you're asking there, it is connected, but it's slightly different. I mean, if it doesn't matter. I mean, the housing market might crash, but you've got to understand as a developer, um, it's units that you're selling essentially. So the question to be answering is, what profit margin are they able to retain if the market crashes, and do they even reduce their prices? In some areas they won't. In some areas they might think, actually, you know what, we'll keep the prices as they are, because they know that the demand to get on the property ladder is still pretty high. So it's all about the profit margins and the efficiencies within that company, that developer. So if you had, Barrett's, for example, or David Wilson Homes that you're going to reinvest in, if I'm looking at their account, what I'm looking at is, what is their gross profit? That's what I'm looking at. What are their operational costs? What profit margin do they have? Because even if the market crashes, say 10%, do they have enough fat in there? That's what I'd be looking at if I was looking at their accounts. Because at the end of the day, they will have projects already in development. They already have houses that are already completing. What you're then looking to do is you're looking to forecast. So if the market were to drop 10% over the next 12 months, what impact is it going to have over the next 12 months? And equally, if it does have an impact, do they have enough cash reserves in the background to actually cover them for the 10 months or the 12 months where they might see a property correction, where their prices might go down and they might have to absorb some of that in their profit line? That's what I'd be looking at. But it's all about research, as I just said there, right? You have to know the answers to those questions, understand, right, what does the shape of the business actually look like? And do they actually have to significantly put their prices down if people are looking to buy? I'm speaking to a property investor on my podcast in the morning, Stephanie. Her portfolio is massive, multi-million pound portfolio. And she's like, this is going to be great time for investors, for buyers. And this is another thing that you need to consider. If you look at Barrett's or David Wilson Homes, yeah, people might not be buying the properties for residential purposes, but investors will be going in to go buy. So it's the balance between supply versus demand, first and foremost, and financial strength within the business. And that's what I would be considering when I'm looking at picking a company like that, given what is rumored to be happening in property over the next 10 to 12 months. I personally think that that a lot of people haven't stress test their finances against their mortgages and low rates. And what I mean by that is, we've all enjoyed 1%, 2% mortgages. If mortgages end up being 7, 8, 9%, we haven't necessarily prepared ourselves for that. So if you know that your mortgage is going to cost you £400-500 a month because the interest rate is 1.5%, have you asked yourself or prepared yourself, right, if that went from £500 to £900, would I be able to cover the mortgage still? A lot of people haven't answered that question. And what a lot of people have done is they've taken out really nice cars on car finance. So they're paying through the nose for the car that they drive, 3, 4, 500, 600, 700 quid a month, right? People are then loading up on credit cards in overdrafts. It's not just the interest rates that are going to cause people to potentially default on their mortgages. It's going to be the other debt that they have, the overdraft, the credit cards, the car finance, the personal loans. It's the combination of all of those that's going to hurt. Because in a low interest rate environment, these things are so cheap for you to access. A lot of people didn't even think twice. Whereas when interest rates are going up, and particularly when it comes to your mortgages, where you're going to see a big jump, then you lump on energy prices, fuel prices, food prices to that equation. There could be some really, really big default numbers next year. And that's not going to be good for the banks. It's not going to be good for the economy. It's not going to be good for anyone. But we'll see what happens, really. It's all eyes on the Bank of England and what they decide to do with interest rates and how much of that is going to be priced in, ultimately. So just saying here. I'm just wait. Oh, sorry. One sec. Where is it? Have I just pinned it? Did I mean to pin that? I didn't mean to pin that. All right. Let's just get rid of that. Let me just show it here. If I can just find it. Here we go. I've just lost it. If I go, where was it? Here it is. I'm just waiting for the next economic slap in the face. I know these are more to come, that's for sure. And, that's kind of what I'm alluding to a little bit there. We live in very, very uncertain times right now. So, from a finance point of view, it's all about making sure that we've got our own house in order. And, there is one thing that is definitely becoming more and more true now is, if you really want to grab hold of your financial situation right now, trying to bring more income in some way, shape, or form is absolutely crucial. I cannot stress that enough. And that may mean, rethinking where you're at in terms of work, right? In terms of what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. It might mean rethinking that. Can you go for a promotion? Can you go for a different job where you might be able to step into a higher basic wage? Or side hustles, businesses, whatever it is, like income is going to be extremely important moving forward now. And the more you're able to bring in, the more of a cushion and a buffer you're going to be able to build yourself. And more importantly, if you're looking to invest for the long term, the more money you're going to be able to set aside to actually put into the markets at some point when you feel comfortable to do so. But yeah, income is going to be so important right now. And if you can increase your income, that should be a priority for everybody right now. Really, really should. I've gone back right down to the bottom of the chat, so I'm just trying to find where I was. Uh, there we go. Here I am. Serenity, how you doing? Thanks, Matt. Not a problem at all. Perfect example on bonds, my man. Thank you very much. Okay, so 0161 is saying I liquidated my stock portfolio in preparation for paying my house deposit in 3 to 9 months' time. Is this considered risky to now put the cash in a 3 month gilt? Yes, 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 yes. Look, listen, I cannot stress this enough, right? And I said this. I said this on Instagram last week, and I've got to say it here again. Please don't invest in the markets because you're watching things and they're telling you that you should be invested in the markets or investing in bonds or investing in property, anything. The starting point of whether you should or should not invest is what you think. What do you want to do? Don't be influenced by this social media narrative that you have to be doing this or you should be in this or you should be in that. No, you shouldn't. You should be in what you want to do, right? You should be all about what you want to do, what you feel comfortable doing. Now, in this example, the house is the goal, not putting money into bonds for 3 to 6 months. Like if you go and buy a gilt right now, can still fluctuate unless you go and put it into a fixed rate bond on the high street. But if you're going to put it into a fixed rate bond, you've got to lock it up for at least 1 year. So if you access it in 9 months' time, you're going to pay a penalty. If you're looking at an investment gilt, those things will still fluctuate in value. So the goal is the house. It's not making more money. If you've already got the deposit, you've already won the game. This is like you've gone into a casino, you've put money in on red, you've come out tops, you're about to leave the casino. Well, you have left the casino and you're thinking of going back in there with something maybe a little bit less risky than the roulette that you played originally. Like you've already won. Like you've got the deposit for the house. You're waiting 3 to 9 months because the property values might fall, which means that your deposit is going to be more than ample, hopefully, to cover. It might be used for legal fees, any extra that you've got. You could use the extra that you have to furnish the house. That's the goal. You've already won the game. You shouldn't be looking at putting money into gilts or treasuries right now because if they do fluctuate, if something happens, guess what? You might come out with a little bit less. You've already won the game, so sit tight and just do what you feel is the right thing to do. Please don't feel under pressure because social media tells you that you should be doing X, Y, Z. It's nonsense. You should do what you want to do, what you feel comfortable in. And that's really, really important to note when you're talking about investing or talking about finances in any forum. You enjoy the losses, also endure. Well, you enjoy the gains, but you also endure the losses. Nobody does that for you. The amount of hype boys that were talking about cryptos and NFTs and all that kind of stuff, where are they now? A lot of them have lost money. You're responsible for your own finances at the end of the day. So just be mindful of that. But in this example, I think you've already won. You've got your deposit. It's all now just about biding your time to see, right, do property prices fall? Do you know, get ready and try and take advantage of it there? But you've already won the game, mate. So Just where was I? The chat keeps going right down to the bottom, so I have to scroll all the way back up just to find where I was. Um, where am I? I have no idea where that's gone. Where is it? Where is it? Sorry, guys. Where are we? Let's. Okay, what's around about here? It's around about here. There we go. Okay, cool. Got you. Gordon. So someone's saying here, fixed 1 year savings account, nearly 4.5% worth of look. Yeah, I mean, look, obviously it's not going to meet inflation, but it's the best that we've had for years. And if you're happy to lock away that money for a year, then it's a guaranteed return. That's the safest you're going to get. So 100%, definitely a good shout. Would you consider doing a deep dive in Invest Engine versus free trade? Where's best to have stocks and shares? ISA. I could do, mate, but if I'm honest, I'm bored of doing reviews. If I'm honest, that's why I haven't done any in a while. I'm just bored of it. I mean, there's only so many providers that you can talk about that you can review over and over and over and over again that it just gets a little monotonous. Um, yeah, it just does. I mean, look, at the end of the day, Invest Engine is very, very different to free trade. You can't buy individual stocks on Invest Engine. You can on free trade. So it's all about understanding how you want to invest in the first place. If you want to go pick your individual stocks, then you just take Invest Engine off the table. And again, this is, there's a lot of hype about investing, and there has been a lot of hype about investing, buying individual stocks, which is great, but do you understand what you're doing? I still use my core satellite approach. I invest mainly in index funds and ETFs, and I have individual stocks in companies that I kind of follow myself. But the bulk of my money is in index funds and ETFs. So if that's the route that you want to go down, then Invest Engine is, in my opinion, well, it is actually cheaper than free trade because you haven't got to pay £3 a month or whatever it is, $3.99 for the ISA wrapper. First and foremost, it's free with Invest Engine, and then you can go and access a lot of ETFs and index funds at very, very low cost. I think even lower than you can with free trade, but that's a very high level comparison between the two of them. But will I do a deep dive? Probably not. Probably not, mate. I've covered a lot of reviews on this channel, and it's just, for me, it's just a little. It's not as interesting as it used to be anymore, if I'm honest. So, but those are just high level thing for you there. If not short-term bonds, how else would you get any sort of low yield on your deposit? It's way too much cash to sit in savings account for half a year, especially with double-digit inflation. But it's not about the return that you're getting. Like, the goal that you have is buying the house. Like, inflation is going to impact what you can buy with the money if you're shopping day to day. You're buying a property. I mean, look, you don't have to take my word for it at the end of the day because it's your choice. But I think it's really, really important to understand that if you're looking to buy, so even if you get a yield on a bond, what yield are you expecting on a bond for 3 months? Answer me that. What yields have you seen out there? Have you seen a yield that will be 3, 4, 5% for 3 months? Probably not. The most attractive rates on bonds are the longer you go. The longer you go, the better the yield is because you're investing the money for much, much longer. So if you're only putting it in there for 3 to 6 months, you're not going to get a 5%, 6% return on a yield on a bond. Not, you just won't, unless you can tell me that there is one, and then I would be questioning what kind of bond it essentially is. But again, the goal here is that you're using it to acquire the house. Inflation isn't the issue here. If you were putting the money in an account that you needed in 5, 10 years time, yes, it's an issue. It's not an issue now because you're buying a house, mate. You're going to acquire a property that will appreciate in value, and it's actually going to be your roof over your head. It's going to give you the foundation to build from there. You're buying an asset, you're acquiring an asset. The inflation question kind of goes out the window because it's all about prioritizing what your goals are. You're looking to acquire an asset, a house. So, what does inflation matter for the next 3 to 6 months? It doesn't really, in my opinion. But again, you don't have to listen to what I have to say. I just view it very, very differently. Let's have a look at this. Oh, there we go. Okay. Um, Views about gold ETFs. Yeah, I mean, gold, I haven't tracked gold over the last week or so, but in recessionary times, gold tends to do okay. ETFs are an easy way for you to be able to access it and get rid of it cheap as well. If you're buying physical gold, you've got to think about storage and getting it somewhere and all that kind of stuff. But if you're buying a gold ETF, easy access, easily be able to track what's going on with it, and crucially, you'll be able to sell it pretty easily as well. I mean, gold's at 1,648 right now. Um, but even if you start looking at when was this? This is, since October, gold is down. Gold is down a bit. It's down. What's that? 20 bips roughly. So it's going for a bit of a rough time right now. Gold, but it's still a good asset class to put money in to shore up your portfolio, to shore up your position for sure. So, yeah. Just joined. Did you mention your thoughts on rate rises? Look, the Bank of England Monetary Policy Committee, they meet this week. I think it's on Thursday. It's the third they're meeting. That might be on Thursday or Wednesday or Thursday. It's probably going to be on Thursday. Let's have a look. Where's my calendar? Yeah, I think it's going to be on Thursday, November 3rd. Yeah, Thursday. And do I think there's going to be a rate rise this coming week? I don't think so. My personal opinion is that Andrew Bailey and the Monetary Policy Committee will probably want to see what comes out in the budget before making a move, because they've already signposted that this increase might be a big one, and I'm sure they'll want to make sure that there isn't anything in the budget that might spook markets before they make a move potentially. So I think they might hold fire, or if they do increase it, maybe keep it at the same level as it was before, 0.5%. But I think that the MPC will probably want to see what's actually going to be in the budget on the 17th before they make a call. So we might see that there's no action this month. And then when they meet again, there might be an increase in interest rate rises now at that point. But I think interest rate rises, look, interest rates are going to continue to go up. Um, it's going to continue to go up. And I honestly don't know how they're going to fix the inflation problem. I just don't. I really don't. Um, Many people are saying actually maybe we need to take a new stance on what the base rate of inflation should be. Should we now be not targeting that inflation is at 2%? Should we be targeting that inflation is at a higher number? What that number is, I don't know. But those are conversations that I've certainly heard going on right now, and to good reason as well. From where they are right now, an 8% reduction in inflation, I just don't see it happening. I don't see it happening in the next 12 months for sure. Um, Especially if you go into recession. We're technically in a recession now. They're saying that this recession is going to last until 2024, and I think that's optimistic. I think that's a really, really optimistic, because we need the catalyst for growth in the economy, and there's so much that goes into that. So much that goes into it. The post Brexit world isn't very conducive for us and growth. And if you look at it, you speak to maybe some of the purists out there in terms of economists. They might say, actually, you know what, that post Brexit position is really, really hurting us. But I think interest rates are going to continue to rise. I think to what level I don't know, but I think they're going to continue to rise for sure. What's your thoughts on GPP hedging global equity at the moment now that the pound is weak? Cheers. I mean, you can obviously 100%. I mean, a lot of people would have bought, S&P 500 may have it in USD, so that's good. But hedging is always a good idea in cases where you do find market fluctuations massively. But I will say, I'll say this, obviously you've got to think about your entry points into these things, right? So if you're going in when the pound is weak against the dollar, obviously it's less that you're putting in because of the exchange rate. The other point that most people need to be worried about is their exit or the point where they're taking in income. So if you're investing for a longer period of time, it's not necessarily an issue because you can't control currency rate fluctuations. It happens every day, happens multiple times every single day. So if you're investing for the long term, you don't have to worry about it. If you're looking for income, yes, you do. But hedging is a good way to basically try and even out that currency fluctuation, that exchange rate risk within the investment as well. So yeah. Someone saying it. It's been quite nice seeing a lot of savings rates going up again, especially as I'm looking to buy a new home in a year or so. I mean, look, every little bit helps at this point in time, really. I mean, we've had low interest rates for a very long time, so it's nice to see that savers are actually getting something back now. It's just a imbalanced equation because of the inflation number, really. But yeah. Can you point us to materials, tools to help us understand how to diversify our portfolio? Yes. The course that I have on the site that talks through diversification. It depends on how you're investing, though. So if you're investing in individual stocks, then you need to be thinking about company size. You need to be thinking about balance sheet. You need to be thinking about profit and loss. You need to be thinking whether they're dividend paying companies or not, um, because those companies have a different profile to others. And then you've got to be thinking about sectors. You've got to be thinking about how you actually select companies across those sectors and who you select. Then you've also got the global geographical map as well. Um, the course goes into a little bit about asset allocation, diversification, all that kind of stuff, but it depends on how you're investing. So if you're using someone like a money box or money farm or I don't know plum or someone like that, you don't have to worry about it because they do it all for you. And this is again where people have to pick their poison, right? So for the last 2 years, it's all been a hype: individual stocks, individual stocks, individual stocks. But do you know how to diversify? Do you know how to build that portfolio? If you don't, then you probably just listen to people and just bought a load of stuff. And now you're probably suffering because you may not have a diversified portfolio per se. The benefit of that is you control it. You can keep your costs down, especially if you're using the likes of trading 212 or free trade, very, very low cost. But if you weren't necessarily sure what you were doing, and for example, you chose Moneybox or Wealthify or Money Farm, for example, then those guys will do all of the diversification for you. I mean, especially people like Money Farm and Wealthify, they're very, very good. I mean, especially Money Farm because they've got an active approach. So when everything's going to pot right now, they'll be looking at areas where they'll be moving the money to make the best use of that money and take advantage of opportunities. They're doing that as part of their day-to-day role. The disadvantage to it is you've got to pay them to do that. And for the last 2 years, I've watched people on YouTube just simply say it's all about cost, 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 cost. It is to a certain degree, but you get to a certain point where it's not about cost, it's about what you're paying this person to do for you. And my money box, my money farm portfolio did extremely well when it was actually quite volatile all through last year because they were moving, shaking, and just tweaking things here and there. And they did really, really, really well. And that's maybe some of the stuff that you want to be looking for if you're just starting out and you're not really too sure on what to do and how to build. But you have to have the foundations in place. Like it's really, really, really important. So those are just a few things. In terms of materials and tools, the tools again, it depends on how you're investing. If you're invested in individual stocks, then you can do stock analysis and stock pickers, because they will do a little bit around the profit and loss and all that kind of stuff. But you still need to understand what you're looking at. So it really depends on what you're looking at, and that's why it's hard for me to say go here, 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 because I don't know whether you're experienced, inexperienced. I don't know whether you're buying individual stocks, whether you're looking to buy ETFs or in index funds. I have no idea. So it's hard to point you specifically. Someone saying here, I'm studying for the level of financial advising diploma and passed my RO1 after I get diploma. Is it possible to become self-employed, or must I go to work for a company first? I would probably advise that you go and work for a company first, because you pass the diploma doesn't mean that you'll be able to. Doesn't mean that you can give advice. Um, because the application of what you know is very, very different, and the tools that you're going to use are also very, very different. So I mean, you can probably go and set yourself up with an Open Work or a Sesame or a SJP or a Simply Biz, because they'll give you all the compliance tools that you need and the compliance framework, which is absolutely crucial. You're going to need that anyway. But if you're self-employed, it depends on how you set up. So if you go and work as an advisor within a practice, you'll get all of the tools, the systems, the CRMs, the compliance, all of that stuff. You'll get all of the insurance as part of it. You want someone who's going to be able to give you a little bit of guidance, because being newly qualified, it's then all about how you take everything from that exam and actually put it into a practical financial planning sense, where you're sitting down with people and you're trying to go through, right, the fact find, you're going through all the analysis, and then you're picking the best way to actually position and put their portfolio to them. That takes a little bit of learning, a little bit of skill. So you need someone who can mentor you. But there's nothing wrong with you being self-employed. I think that you'll have more pressure on you if you're self-employed. Whereas if you could go and work for a actual business, a financial planning business, and if you can find an employed one, that would be great. But you pretty much only need about 12. If you do 12, 18 months, I think you'll be pretty cool. You'll start to have confidence, and you would have maybe got yourself a few clients as well. So it's a good springboard. But just know that if you're self-employed, you've got to bring in all your clients, mate, and that is tough work. It's a lot of hard work. It's a killer sometimes, and you've got to be able to self-fund yourself as well if you're self-employed. So if you can get an employed role where they can handhold you, give you maybe a few clients to look after, you might start off doing protection first and foremost, then moving into the investment and the pension side. But if you can find an employed role first, that's what I would probably will say will give you the best experience possible, because going full in self-employed, newly qualified, it's tough. It's really, really tough. If you do need help though, Mantis, let me know. Let me know, because yeah, just message me on Instagram or something like that. I might be able to put you in touch with a couple of people. All right, this is a good one as well. I'm planning to buy my first property within the year. Should I be putting my money into investing? No, you should not. Investing for a year is extremely high risk. If the market falls, you could basically lose your deposit that you've worked so hard to basically get. Again, eyes on the prize. The prize here is not investing for more returns. The prize is getting the house. Again, if social media, if you're asking this question because social media is telling you should be investing, it's a great time to invest. Markets are crashing, everything's cheap, blah, you should get in, blah, 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 blah. This is the thing that drives me nuts about social media. Yes, that is true. Markets are down, funds, stocks are cheap, but nobody talks about risk management, and it drives me absolutely nuts. And the reason why people don't talk about risk management is because they don't have the foggiest idea of risk profiles and how to manage risk profiles, because a lot of them aren't qualified to be speaking about the stuff that they talk about. And this is throwing no shade at anybody, but they also haven't actually worked in actually managing and risk management themselves. They don't know the kind of conversations that are had when you're looking at a pot of money for someone and you're really trying to weigh up, right, the goal is this, the timeline is this, the risk is here, we can move either side. They are not talking about asset allocation, strategic asset allocation. They're not talking about any of that stuff because they simply don't know. So keep your eye on the prize. The prize is the house in 12 months' time. The prize isn't putting money into the stock market, looking to get another 2, 3, 4, 5, or 10%, whatever it is that you think that you might get. It can very, very quickly go the opposite way. And if the markets continue to crash for the next 6 to 7 to 8 months, we enter into recession, trust me, that may not come back for 24 months. You want to buy a house in 12 months. That means you're not going to be able to buy the house. So keep your eye on the prize. Do not invest that money if you're only going to be looking at investing it for a year. It is too much of a high risk for you to take. That's my honest opinion, mate. Being 15 years in the industry, I don't have anything to gain by telling you that, but I just don't want to see you put money into the market and then all of a sudden you can't buy the house because the markets have turned. All right, someone saying here, hello, my workmate has a workplace pension and a private pension. I don't see the reason on having a private pension besides choosing what you can invest. Is it best to have just a workplace pension? You can choose what you invest in a workplace and in a workplace pension as well. So workplace pension will have a number of funds and options that you can invest in. Most people, if they don't pick, will go into a default, which would be like a 50-50, 50% in equities, 50% in bonds. If they're looking to invest or not to retire for 30, 40 odd years, then they really need to move out of the default fund into something higher risk. You can choose what you invest in. A private pension, a workplace pension, they're fundamentally the same. The only difference with a workplace pension is that it's administered and looked after by a massive company on behalf of your employer, and you're an employee under that scheme. That's the only difference. Within a private pension, should you have both? Yes, you can have both, but I would definitely recommend, depending on where your friend basically works, he should be asking whether they have a matching scheme, because the employer has to put in 3%, he has to put in 5, but with some matching schemes, if he puts in 10, the employer will also put in 10. So in those instances, I will always say max out the workplace pension before you start looking at a private pension. But if that isn't available, then he could have a private pension. It really depends on his circumstances, but he should for sure make sure and ask whether there is a matching scheme in place, because if there is, it's free money that he's not currently taking advantage of. But you can choose where you invest money and what options let's phrase it the right way so people don't think that I'm saying you can pick stocks. You can't pick stocks, but the administrator who looks after the workplace pension and manages the workplace pension will have a number of funds that you could invest in. Okay, so one of my old pensions was with Legal and General. They've got a whole host of funds and places where they invest, and you can pick whichever one you want. So he just needs to make sure that he asks to make sure that he's in something that he actually likes and wants to be invested in. Yeah, someone's just saying here, invested in house builders, not a chance in the next few years, just my view. Again, it's everything that I just mentioned there. You need to take a very, very long look at the company. Um, if you're looking to hold that stock in that builder for 10, 15 years, then that's completely fine. But you still need to take a long, hard look at the company. Do they have cash reserves? What's their profit margin? You need to have a look at all of that stuff to be confident that you're picking the right one. Facebook, Meta is down 70% and roughly 9 billion. Mark taken out. Mark Zuckerberg, I mean, he's doubling down on the metaverse, and investors haven't really liked that. They haven't liked that at all. And you know what? I'm on social media a lot, obviously, but I think Mark needs a massive, massive wake up call. What happens on Instagram and Facebook? Let's just talk about Facebook. Facebook is no longer Facebook. Facebook is old. It's just dead. It's completely dead. Now you think about Instagram. Instagram is where most people, I guess, kind of interact. But the experience on Instagram is so bad. I mean, the amount of accounts that I've had clone my account, they do nothing about it. The stuff that is happening on that platform, like, don't get me wrong, I've got money in Meta, And when I think about it, I have two heads when I look at Meta. I've got the investors, then I've also got a user. And part of me is like, I'm glad that the stock is down because they need a wake up call. They've been way too big for way too long. They've been the leading social media platform for way too long that they've got complacent. It's not about user experience anymore. It's not about making sure that the people who contribute to the platforms, who create content for the platforms, it's not about making sure that everyone has a great experience. It's about them and advertisers. And that for me is a massive, massive conflict. I don't want to put more energy into Instagram because I'm afraid that people, when they clone my account, will get scammed, and people already have. Literally 3 months ago, somebody sent some dude £5,000 because he thought it was me. And it's like, I would never come here and ask you for money. I would never ask you for money on Instagram. Will they do anything about it? Never have they done anything about it. And I've probably had my account cloned 20 times, reported it 20 times, nothing. I've asked to be verified, nothing. It's just an absolute shambles. So part of me is kind of happy that the stock is actually suffering. And I hope that he does wake up and he does pay attention to the people who use it and the people who contribute to things like, to Instagram, who make it what it is. But at the same time, I've got my investor's hat on as well. And it's like, well, I'm kind of losing money, and I have to reconcile that in my own head. But for the most part, Facebook and Zucker's is just an absolute. It's an absolute mess. It really, really is. It's just nuts. What is the stock actually doing? Meta platforms. I mean, if you start looking at the stock, right? How far does this go? Let's. Hmm. You see a massive. So, oh my god! Actually, let me see if I can actually just share this with you, right? Because this is from his last meeting where he doubled down. He's doubled down on the fact that he's not going to park the metaverse or anything like that. One thing you got to give him is he does believe it. He really, really believes in the metaverse, and he thinks it's the right thing to do, right? But have a look. Have a look at this drop right here. So look. So that was, what's that? 137. Look at that, down to sub 100. That was, yeah, that was on Friday, Thursday, Friday this week. It's a big, big drop. It's a big, big drop because he's got to the point where he's spooking investors. He's spooking investors because he's just so obsessed. And you need someone who believes in what they're doing as a company, 100%. But there needs to be a wake up call with that guy. It's just, yeah, that's my opinion on Meta. What are the banks? Pete, are the banks in trouble? I heard they're getting more free money than ever to stay afloat. Infinite money from central banks. I've not heard that. I've not tracked anything that says that the banks are in trouble. Um, I wouldn't read it. I wouldn't believe everything you read. From 2007, 2008, from the crash right there, the banks have a lot of capital set aside for when markets crash, and that has been the case for years and years and years. So at this point in time, they will be looking at those capital reserves and using those. Even if the market does crash and we have a load of defaults next year, it's not going to be anything near what it was in 2007, 2008. And these guys go through stress testing all the time. So I don't think that there are any banks that will necessarily be in a huge amount of trouble if next year we start to see, people default on their mortgages, depending on how many people start to default on their mortgages. But I think they will have enough capital reserves that they can use before they start going about getting money from central banks. I mean, the Bank of England isn't going to bail any one of those banks out right now because they should have enough capital reserves available from 2007, 2008. And it was a requirement year on year that they have to have a certain amount of money set aside. Bear me 1 second. Where are we? Where are we? I just skipped all the way back down to the bottom again. Um, Bear me 1 second. Let me just find this. Where are we? Okay, we've done that one. Oh, here we go. Okay. Yeah, Ensol's just echoing what I was saying there. Don't play the markets with your house deposit. It's crazy. It is crazy. It's nuts if you do. It's not worth it. Keep your eye on the prize. Don't succumb to social media pressure. All of these hype merchants who will be saying it's so cheap right now, you could make so much money. They're not going to be talking about the risk of you losing money because they have no interest in telling you that. So please don't gamble. Don't play your house deposit on the markets. Xavier, let's have a look. Cheers for all your videos. Thank you. I just started putting money into my lifetime ISA now that I have started earning an income. Also started learning about building my own portfolio. Good. So if you're going into a lifetime, who are you using, mate? Who are you using? I think that's the first question. Um, like again, providers will do some of this stuff for you. I know that people want to learn and be able to take charge of this themselves. But I think that ultimately it's all about how you sequence things, right? So I, when you learn to drive a car, you don't go and get into the you don't go and buy a Lamborghini and learning your Lamborghini. You don't do that, do you? You learn in something there where you're even after you finish. Well, I'm talking normal people here, right? Not multimillionaires. I know there were kids who will just their first car will be a Lamborghini. That's not what I'm talking about. Normal people will just buy a car that if they prang it, doesn't really matter. It's okay. They're just learning it to get confidence. That's fine. And if I were to draw a parallel between that and investing, I would say that for most first time investors, individual stocks is a very, very high risk. And again, social media has made this sexy. Social media has made this so attractive that the stocks and you feel like a stock picker. You're not, unfortunately, not yet anyway. And for most first time investors, the best thing you could do to start off with is to buy a cheap, cheerful, really boring index fund or an ETF, put some money in that, and then start learning about individual stocks and doing that educational process alongside that. What you then do is when you've got confidence, your money in your index fund has already started to grow. You're getting the experience. You're experiencing market fluctuations, it going up and down. You're learning how to deal with that yourself, thinking, oh, it's down 5%. Okay, how do I feel? Am I okay with it? Am I okay to put more money in? Or are you a little bit spooked and you're thinking, hang on a second, I need to pause for a second. That's all happening whilst you're learning. It's very, very different when you see market fluctuations and in one stock, for example, if you bought stock, you're down, boom, 50%, 60%. That's a completely different mind space, completely different mind space. Whereas if you're an index fund, you're not going to see that level of massive moves. It's still going to scare you as a first time investor, but you get used to it. And as you learn about individual stocks and the risk element to individual stocks and maybe researching individual stocks and building your portfolio, you then are able to take, I guess, more of a gamble in saying, okay, right now, you're going to put in what you want into this part here, which is for the individual stocks, whilst your index funds and ETFs are still going. It is about a learning process. It will take time, unfortunately. It's not a quick overnight, a load of money, you're going to make tons of money. No, it's going to be up, it's going to be down, it's going to be peaks, it's going to be trough. Like, I've worked in the industry for a very long time. I've been investing for a while as well. And even when I look at some of my individual stocks and even my ETFs, this is still a hard thing that I have to come to terms with. Like, hang on a second, it's down. I've got stocks at the moment that are down like 60%, right? Individual stocks. I don't have all of my money into those things. But even with the amount that I have, which is still relatively small to my overall holdings, I look at it and I think, I don't like it. And that's just human nature. And that is exacerbated even more when you're just starting out because you maybe haven't experienced the market cycles before. You've never experienced the market go down by like 50% and then it comes back, or 10%, then it comes roaring back. You probably haven't experienced that. So, take your time with it and really, really don't don't feel the pressure to do a certain thing because social media is telling you that you should be doing something. Like, do what you feel is most comfortable. If you watch a video and it's like, oh, you kind of understand or like what he's saying there, go find an opposing opinion so you can get to a middle ground. That's really, really important right now. Budget Bear, this is great advice. There are too many people out there telling others to invest to make people feel they're silly if they don't do it. Look, it drives me absolutely nuts, and we have to be discerning. We really, really do. Um, we just really, really do. The thing is, right, most of the people will be talking about, picking this stock and picking that stock and all this kind of stuff. How many of these guys have been found out over this year? How many of them have been found out this year? YouTubers that were paid to pump a particular stock, YouTubers that were paid to pump a particular NFT or cryptocurrency, right? They don't disclose it. They don't tell you that they were paid to do that. I mean, crypto is way more nefarious than individual stocks, right? But there's a guy. He's an English guy. On his Instagram, I won't say who he is. He made videos talking about how he just bought a G wagon, 120, 130,000 pounds. Do you want to know how he made that money? Because through the summer of 2021, he was approached to promote a meme coin, right? And he was given a ton of this meme coin at the beginning. He then proceeds to make money when he starts to make videos. And as he's telling his fellow followers to buy the meme coin, this is going to be the next best thing, blah, 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 blah. As the price of this meme coin keeps going up, 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 he's cashing in what was given to him at the beginning. And that's how he made the money to buy a G-Wagon. What's his name? Coffeezilla. Go watch Coffeezilla's account on YouTube. He exposes a lot of this stuff. YouTube is shady as fuck. And I don't normally swear, but trust me, it's shady as anything. And you have to be so careful. The way I monetize on my channel, and I am very, very transparent around that, is I will work with brands. I will work with well-known, established brands who will sponsor the channel. I might do some review videos for them or talk about them. I haven't done anything since, April? No, June. I haven't done any collaboration since June. But that's how I monetize my channel. I don't monetize by being paid to talk about a particular stock or an NFT. I would never do that. I've had people offer me 10, 15,000 pounds to promote a meme coin. I used to get an email every single week. We want you to do this. We want you to do that. I ignore them all because at the end of the day, if it's a meme coin, there's a catch. And people like Kim Kardashian being fined by the SEC, I think it was $2 million. Why? Because at the end of the day, this stuff is still unregulated and it is a jungle out here. It's the wild, wild west. You just have to be very, very careful. And so, when you're investing, please, 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 please listen to your intuition more than you do other people. And that's what I guess people forget all the time. People forget to follow their own intuition. What they do is they listen to other people and ignore their own inner voice. And that's the wrong thing to do. You should always listen to your inner voice. If something doesn't feel right, it probably isn't. You should always trust your gut when you're looking at doing anything, not even just investing, anything. You should trust your gut because your gut, most of the time, is right. Someone's saying here, I exited my stocks and shares lifetime ISA on October 21st following your advice. Please save me about minus 20% on the Vanguard fund I was in. Cheers, mate. Well, at least, look, I hope that you did it because you felt it was the right thing to do for you at the end of the day. If you've got money into a lifetime ISA, and it is most of the time when I speak to people on this channel, is because they want to buy a house. I have to reiterate that. It's the price is the house. It's not the investment return. It really, really isn't. Like when I work with people on a one-to-one basis doing coaching, we go through a timeline exercise. So basically, we map out, and I ask people to really get into the detail of it. 10 years from now, what does it look like? What are the milestones in between? Right. So you have 10 years on the map on the line. Right. This happens here. This happens here. This happens here. Money is a tool. Life is for living. Right. That's the slogan. Your money is there to help you meet those specific things on your timeline, no matter where they are. So you prioritize them. That's what you should be doing. And if you're buying a house, investing for 10 years doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter. It's the house that matters. So, how do you get to the house in the safest way possible without taking crazy risk on the markets? Sometimes you might be able to incorporate a little bit of that if you have long enough. Sometimes it's just not appropriate. I mean, with a lifetime ISA, you're getting 25% return automatic anyway, guaranteed from the government. So, what on the stock market is going to give you a 25% return? But we chase an additional 2 or 3% and put that return and put your capital at risk because investing is sexy. It makes no sense, right? When you put it that way. If I came to you right now and said, right, okay, look, give me 100 quid and I give you 25 quid back plus your 100 quid, 25% return, would you take it? Whereas if I said to you, right, give me 100 quid, I might be able to give you back your capital, but I just don't know when. And it might come back a little bit short, by the way. So you could give me 100 quid, it might be 90 quid, but actually I could make you 10%, get you 110. Which of those two offers sounds more attractive? The first one, right? Because you're going to get your 100 quid back with 25 quid on top. Not give me 100 quid. I might give you back 90. It might be 110. You need to think of it in that way. It's really, really simple when you boil it down. All right, where are we? We're here right now. Okay, I'm just scanning the rest of these questions. Have I got enough time to get to these? Probably not. Oh shit, there's quite a few. We've been about an hour. Let me just pick maybe one or two more. Let me pick one or two more. Sean, buying your house, buying your first home next month, mate. Congratulations. Really, really, really good to hear. And listen, when you buy your first house, it's amazing how you feel, right? Because now you've got the asset and it's there, and it's something that is going to give you a springboard. It gives you a sense of security more than anything else. And especially when you've come from renting, where your rent is probably higher than your mortgage payment, you start thinking, what? It's crazy. And like, dude, mate, just enjoy it, and yeah, enjoy the security that you get with it as well. It's great. The first one is always kind of like the sweetest. Bonds and savings accounts, are they the same? No, they're not. It depends what kind of bonds you go for. You've got fixed rate bonds, you've got corporate bonds, you've got government gilts. They're all very, very different. The safest out of those three are fixed rate bonds that you'll get on the high street. So you can go to Nationwide, 1 year, 2 year, 3 year fixed rate bonds. You'll get your capital back with a guarantee of an X amount in return. So those are the easiest. But they're very, very different to corporate bonds and government bonds or gilts, essentially. So where you're lending money to companies, especially in today's age, you're normally lending them over a longer period of time. You might get a return for it, but if you're buying something that is effectively traded, then they can go up down in value. And typically, if you're going to buy a corporate bond or a government bond, you can't just go to Tesco's yourself. They will go to the money markets, and so you buy it from there. And the value of what you buy the value of the bond depends on the instrument that you use. So, for example, if you choose a Vanguard bond, for example, the price of that will go up and down, which is where you start to see the fluctuation. All right, okay, I'm just going to block this user now. All right, let me pick one more. I'm just looking through. There's a lot of conversation in the comments around the house deposit and investing, which is good to see. Essentially, all right. This is a really good question. I've answered this question on a previous slide, but this is very, very topical right now. And actually, I might get on my soapbox here. Okay. So this goes back to people not necessarily understanding what they're talking about. So the question is, with the current economic climate, do you think it's wise to switch from passive funds to active funds? Now, let me answer the question first before I get on a tangent, because this is really important. If you're in a passive fund, all it basically do is track the market. That's it. So if it goes up, it's going to track it. If it goes down, it's going to track it. A goldfish could have made money in a passive fund when the markets were going up, which has been for a very long time, certainly through 2020, 2021. Market's gone up, passive funds, perfect, because it's low cost and you're just tracking something that's going up anyway. You can't really lose. Passive funds in a falling market are not necessarily the best thing. And again, this is where swings and roundabouts, peaks and troughs, you've got to take the good with the bad. Now, in a passive fund, if the market falls 30%, 40%, that's what's going to happen. You're tracking the market. Now, a lot of people on YouTube talk about passive funds this, passive funds that. And they talk about how active funds have never outperformed passive funds in the history of investing. Well, that depends on what you're comparing it to, because ultimately the people who are saying this are people who potentially have never worked in an investment house, for an investment house, never advised people, never really managed money or talked about risk management. They certainly haven't sat in investment committee meetings where you are dissecting your strategic asset allocation and your tactical asset allocation and seeing where everything sits based on a number of scenarios and how the portfolio will perform. These people have no clue whatsoever. And so for the last 2 years, everyone's been on passive, 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 passive. In an up market, that's great. In a very turbulent market, the benefit of active management is that you narrow down the pool of companies that you're invested in. And there is a very strict criteria around the companies that they have invested in. So, for example, even if you're invested with, I don't know, a money farm. I'm going to use that as an example because they are active managers. What they will basically do is they will have a selection of companies that they're invested in as their core, but they will also have their eye on other opportunities within the market space as well. So they'll be thinking, right, okay, this sector's down, but actually what we're seeing, because they have rooms and floors full of people who look at equity markets, bond markets, property markets, that is commercial property markets. They have floors of people who do this for a living. And all they're doing is they've got all of this data that comes in, and they're saying, right, so the forecast is this. So what we think is there is an opportunity in this sector. We're gonna pull some money out of the portfolios that we have right now and reallocate it to this area because that's what we think is going to be the best bet over the next 12 months whilst the UK or the US or the global economy goes into recession. These guys are actively looking at that. The downside is you have to pay for their services, which goes against the mantra of a lot of these people on YouTube who talk about investing, who talk about low cost, low cost, low cost, low cost, low cost, low cost fees. Right. It is an important decision and it is an important factor if you're only just starting out. But once you get to a point where your investment, your portfolio is worth a substantial amount or at least a noticeable amount of money, then you start thinking about, right, okay, so the people that are looking after this, are they taking the right approach? Because now you have more to protect. And the thing that drives me nuts about a lot of people on YouTube and social media, TikTok, Instagram, is they have no experience whatsoever. I used to work for a discretionary fund manager, and I used to sit there with investment managers, and I used to literally watch them pour over the data that comes out every single day. They get buy lists, so individual stocks, right? Who do we think are the companies that are buys right now? Oh, we've had this information, this stock is down, this is the upside. They have all of the analysis there and they make their decisions based on the data that comes through from their equity team, the bond team, the property team. It's not just I've watched something on YouTube, I'm going to go do that. There is analysis that goes into it. Now, as a retail investor, that information is hard to come by unless you want to go and pay £25,000 for a Bloomberg terminal and get market data as it happens. Most retail investors aren't going to do that. And so it's really, really important to understand the difference between a passive and an active. Now, I have active funds in my investment portfolio. I do. And those active funds have done actually quite well. But I'm happy to pay the fees, quite happy to pay the fees, because in times like this is where they're going to make their money. I trust that they are getting the information, the data through, and I trust that they'll make the best decisions, because ultimately, if my portfolio grows, they're going to earn more money. And actually, for me, that's a balance I can deal with. If they lose me money, their commission, their fees will be less. So it's in their best interest that my portfolio does really, really well, so they can get more fees out of me. That's a win-win situation. They have skin in the game with me, because if I lose money, they don't make enough. They don't make a lot of money, and they want to make money. Believe me, I want them to make money, because the more they make, the more I'm going to make. And so, it's really down to you. But I think a lot of people should not be dismissing active funds in times like this. People shouldn't even be dismissing active funds, period. Because the narrative of passive, 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 yeah, a lot of YouTubers, probably 80, 90% of YouTubers are talking about passive. Passive is the way to go, right? For the last 2 years. Okay. When you get into recessionary periods, passive is not the way. When the markets are falling, passives are not the way. And that goes even further to talk about the fact that there is no one way that is perfect when you're investing. You have to do what you feel is right for you and take the approach that you feel is right for you as well. Long answer, but it's extremely important. Really, really important. All right, okay. There's so much stuff I'm not going to be able to get to here. Thank you, Zero. Appreciate that. Yes, we've just under 100 people on here right now. If we can get the likes up to about 80, that would be amazing. I will do another one of these. Again, it's just all about time more than anything else. I said I was going to do 45 minutes. We've done like an hour and a half. Sunday evening as well. So thank you guys for watching. I will do another one of these. Um, it's just time. It's time more than anything else. And yeah, we'll have to see. But appreciate you.